Okay. Smooth entry there. Good day, everyone. And welcome back to Sunday Night Teacher Talk, a show that has very squeaky chairs. So that's a thing. Anyway, what we are is an imperfect show to try and help you be the best that you can be this week. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It just means that we're showing up with the gifts that we were given and trying the best to work them the best that we can. And so we meet every Sunday to try and help one another to get it together. As my friend Jen Jones would say, get your lit together. And so this is behind that idea. So here's how this works. If you've not been here, if this is your first time, so thrilled that you're here. Go ahead and put any question you want in the chat. If you don't have a question, then you can answer people's questions. You can just listen along. Maybe you're listening to this on the podcast because you can go right over to Spotify or Apple or wherever, listen to this as a podcast as well. And that's how it's going to basically roll. I'm feeling slightly heads disheveled. Slightly.
We've had a lot going on prior to this. We're working on a lot of things, trying to get things ready. Tech doesn't work. Sometimes things are just fighting against you. But we're here, right? Just like everybody else. We, sometimes get disheveled and have tons of stuff going on too.
The thing, man. So real quick, I want to shout out Heather Carson. Did she get Teacher of the Month?
Well, Carson Randall really is her married name.
She got married. But so Heather, she got Teacher of the Month?
She did.
Yeah. So I just wanted to shout out Heather for getting Teacher of the Month. It's Chris Carson. Everyone sees him in the comment section all the time and stuff.
That's his daughter.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's
exciting. So congratulations, Heather.
And I think Maisha's on here this week too. Yeah, she sent me a text. I didn't get a chance to look at it yet because I was trying to plow through, which is why we were a couple minutes late. Yes. You got questions?
I am.
Let's just get into it, man. Let's just start answering questions.
All right. John Fox is up first, asking if someone was planning on moving across the country, like you guys recently did, what wisdom, tips, or life hacks would you give based on your experience?
Say this first, Johnny Fox.
That's a timely question, John.
First of all, it is about 4 times more expensive than you think it's going to be.
Well, that depends if you use a moving company, right?
We used a moving company. So they didn't pack our stuff up. Like you can get people to come in and put it in boxes for you. But if you're like a single dude, you're, moving across the country.
Or just 2, not like a whole family with kids and all of that.
Yeah.
I would say use a moving company. My experience overall, was it perfect? No. Did some stuff get crushed and there's some nuance in if things get damaged, how they handle that. We were supposed to check to make sure everything was A-okay before they left. And I'm like, how do I go through 100+ boxes to make sure that you didn't damage anything? Even my lampshades were packed, and they got crushed. So, but overall, it was really, really wonderful and really helpful to have someone. Man, to pack it up is enough, but to then have someone else load it in the truck was awesome.
Because they take apart your furniture, then they put it back together too.
Yes.
If it comes apart. Here's 2 things I would mention, John. One is buy the stuff. So you think you can get away with, I'm just going to put this TV in a box. Go buy the TV box. Buy the stuff that they make for your stuff. It is an investment. And you can just resell it on Facebook Marketplace on the back end, right? So use it and then cut 25-50% off and just sell it on Facebook Marketplace, and it's gone. The other thing is,
or buy it from Facebook Marketplace,
Yes,
right? Like,
yeah.
don't buy it from Home Depot or Lowe's or those sort of places. Buy from Amazon because they're a little cheaper.
Yeah.
Or you can buy someone else's used stuff. Like right now, we're selling moving boxes on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, so if you're in the western Texas, eastern New Mexico area, and you're looking for boxes.
No, I actually sold all
Yes,
the boxes. It's the TV boxes.
Okay.
But they do like really, really help. So
Yeah.
that's a really good tip.
The other thing is, I think, and I kind of wish people could do this with schools too. I would visit where you're going to go and act like you live there. Like, what would daily life look like there? And we didn't have the chance to do that because everything happened so quickly. And we have her family here, so that changes some things. But you know, as an adult, John, it's hard to make friends. And so trying to figure out like what life is going to look like there, how are you going to connect with people? I think that's in real time trying to figure that piece out because, yeah, I mean, if you're working at a school, that's going to be a little bit easier to make friends. But yeah, I find it incredibly difficult to just like make a friend as an adult.
It's like a new thing, especially if you don't drink and you're not hanging at bars or that kind of
Yeah.
life. It's like, where do you make friends?
Yeah.
It's
So
a new thing.
it's a weird new adventure. So yeah, that's my advice. Hit it, babe.
Yeah. Okay, Linda is up next asking any future plans for another book.
So, Linda, yes. So there's a couple of like big things that I want to do before that. So this year has me, and here's why. One, I have to really think about a book that I would really want to spend time and go deep on. It is way harder to write a book than anyone can explain to you. It is just difficult. And I think I would self-publish my next book by choice, even though I've had some other options. I've talked to someone else, a really good friend of mine, about collaborating on a book and making a book that would be for schools. And that it would be a component where schools and teachers, it would be something to work through together to make your school awesome. But my thought really lately has been, and we're going to take this to the Bible real quick, because my favorite prayer in the Bible is when God wakes Solomon up in the middle of the night, and because that happens sometimes, and says to him that actually, I'm sure it does happen to people sometimes. Anyway, says, "What do you want?" And Solomon says, he wants the wisdom to be able to serve the people in a way, or use it. He wants the wisdom to serve the people in a way that pleases God. And so it's really been thinking about it. That's really been on my mind. And so what can we create that's going to serve teachers at the highest level? And so with that, I'm actually going to tell you something that we're working on right now. It will be out this week. It was supposed to be done today, but there's some back end stuff that we're just trying to figure out so that it's the smoothest experience for people as possible, if you want to throw that up. So we are going to run a workshop a month for the rest of the school year to try and help teachers, right? So it is all 4 of them are going to be based around classroom management. So there's going to be classroom management 101, 102, 103, and 104. The first one is happening February 1st. Availability will open up for that sometime this week. And the first one is going to be around building relationships, because I think you can take that down, babe. I think folks get relationships aren't just a nice to have. They're not just about becoming buddies with students and having these experiences that I talk about a lot. Like, I have a lot of students that I still keep up with. It is about knowing who you're teaching so that class can go better. It is like, sometimes if you don't know a kid, I don't care how fun your class is, you could make it as fun as humanly possible. It's just not going to but if there's a kid with an undiagnosed issue, if there's a kid that's going through trauma, if there's a kid that has problems at home, if there's a student that you're not teaching to, without having some knowledge of our students, even at this point in the year. Like, right, there's kids in your class that you're like, why do they do this? Why are they acting up? Why are they behaving like this? And the first step of that is building relationships with students. So that's something we're doing February 1st. That's going to happen. There'll be another workshop that happens February 29th. There's another one that happens in March, and then middle of April, we're going to do another one, all based on classroom management. But it is the deepest I've ever gone into this topic ever, because I get chunks to do it. I get 45 minutes, an hour to do each one. We priced it super basic, so it's $67 for like the entry level one. We were trying to mess around with another price point that was lower, but it didn't. It cost. I need to have this not costing me money. So that was like the bargain basement price. If a minimum number of people sign up for it, so that's why we picked that price point. And then, so it's like I feel like this right now, when I talk to folks, is the number one thing is classroom management. That's what I'm hearing from everyone. That's why we picked it. So if a book happens, it'll be talking to my buddy. And after these happen, I have one more thing I want to do over the summer, and then that becomes a real possibility. And then that will even be like a conversation. I want to know what do people want a book about, right? Like, I don't want to just make something. I want to make something that that folks can use and that folks want.
Funny enough, someone said in the comments that a book on classroom management is really needed in this space.
You know what? It's the funny thing is, like, you play this game on Instagram or on YouTube about views. And it's not just views because I want to get a lot of views. I look at views as, okay, this is something people need. And so if I'm really focusing on like the needs of folks, every time there's a classroom management video, it does well. Now, my other thumbnail was a little wonky the other day, I think, in retrospect, about reading, but that those views paled in comparison to the classroom management video I put up before that. So that just, it's like people voting with their eyes. And so that's something we've seen over time. And I will say that, like, classroom management, and without trying to sound like a narcissist or something, is something that I've gotten very, very good at in my life and in my career. And like I said, if you talk to people that worked with me, I suck at a lot of stuff. I just am disastrous in a lot of areas.
Organization is not your specialty.
Yeah, but engagement, relationships, classroom management, things of that nature, that was my gifted space. But organizing stuff and getting back to your email.
I'll tell you what, having this, doing what we do online has caused you to become better at organization and digital organization.
I have to be.
That's for sure.
I have to systematize. If I went back to the classroom, it would be, I'd be a system monster. I'd be a habit tracking monster.
Yeah.
I would track every grade, every assignment that every student did, so that we could see in real time. I would create some kind of matrix where kids were constantly having a sense of where they were.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move to Steph is up next, asking any luck, experience, suggestions on shifting from autonomy to whole grade level content, doing the same assignment / grade book. Hammer is coming down from middle school admin who used to be ES. You got that one?
All right. So this is, so Steph, kind of like, I'm going to say this. I feel like this is a terrible idea, right? That taking teachers' autonomy away and moving towards something that is everyone's doing the same thing at the same time and we're all doing it together sucks, because it doesn't play into, like, it's like having, and look, I'm not even that big of a sports guy here, right? But it's like having a really good quarterback and you're like, no, everyone gets to play a little bit of everything. You're going to be a linebacker now, right? But if you're not big enough to be like, to nail, like run into other guys and crush them, then you're going to get creamed, right? So I find that by and large, as I've worked with some very big companies to try and work with them about like how you can sprinkle magic on what you're doing, it just becomes very difficult because you ultimately, your hands are tied and you have to teach a certain way. Now, because what's that going to do? What that does is some of those lessons are going to be really great because they align with the type of teacher some of the teachers are. And some teachers hate autonomy, right? They're actually, I've met a number of people that are just scared by it. It's like too much. It's like too much freedom. And so what do they do with that? I find that schools often do this though, when they have teachers that aren't pulling their weight, that are not doing a very good job. So they have to systematize that class. They have to like it's just like make it all the same because you got someone that's not doing their work. And I can't stand that either, because it's like we do a thing where we lower our greatness to the level of the person who does the worst, instead of raising the bar and telling that person to get their life together or helping them in ways that are actually useful. I have an idea, but I see you have a hand raised.
So John Lopez, I just think I would like to say
No,
what's
hit it.
happening in the comments. John Lopez said that administrator probably wants to see the same assignments if will raise the standards, like the same standards, I guess, in assignments to see if it raises the test scores.
And look, I mean, maybe this will be good. And that's a good point too. Steph, what I would say is, if there's nothing you can do about it, if you can't switch jobs, if you can't switch schools, I think you're in a new place this year anyway, but like, to me, I just choose to look at it as a challenge. So how am I going to like, oh, you're going to do this? Bet, like, watch this. And then that's where a lot of sprinkling the magic kind of comes from for me, is this idea of when I've had to teach a certain book and everyone's complaining about it. Nope. This is going to be I'm going to make this book the best. And because kids deserve it, and because I can. And so trying to begin to think of ways. I had this crazy idea that I don't even know that I could ever pull this off. Where I was going to ask people to send me like their lamest lessons. Like, what's something that you are just like, Reynolds, this cannot be made interesting or fun or engaging? Because dude, right, there's stuff like that. Just send it to me, and then I'm going to come up with a plan on how you can do it. Right. Like, it's like, just send the challenge and then let's figure it out together. But yeah, I just think that that's something that I look at it. The only positive way I can think of, Steph, unless it's the pushback, which, I'm going to say go to admin and pushback, but like, is how can you make it fun and take it as a challenge and then run with it?
She said in the comments that there are new standards coming out next year and a new program required by the district, and it's mostly due to literacy across the board.
Yeah,
like I guess poor scores.
Yeah, and look,
that's a whole nother one that makes me go, well, maybe your reading program isn't very good.
Reading program isn't good, or talk to Lopez and I talk about this all the time. Like, we act like COVID's just over, and that like a year and a half, 2 years of learning from home didn't just disrupt everything. And so we're like, wait, the scores aren't where they're supposed to be. And it's like, of course they're not.
It's going to take years to get back to
if you were in fighting shape and then you didn't exercise or practice fighting for 2 years, you're not coming back as a contender right away, right? Watch Rocky 4.
All right. Drifts to Gaming, I think that is.
Yeah.
Asking, do you know of teachers that were dissatisfied with public school teaching but found their niche in higher ed?
The short answer is yes. I've also seen folks that like it. I just was talking to a mentee about this the other day, where he was saying that he had a buddy that taught in in Chicago, inner city Chicago, for 10 years. And got really good at classroom management, right? Because that was a need. Then he moved and went to China and taught. And he was like, classroom management is a non-issue. So what then happens is, when you used to get this much done, now you're getting this much done. And so it allowed him to really focus on his pedagogy and getting better at being a teacher, since classroom management like issues weren't taking up a large majority of the class. And I've had other friends that have done this too. My buddy Randy that I taught with in West Philly, he went and taught at a private school in California. No classroom management issues, but ran into the same problem. And so some folks that might not be satisfied in public education might, however, find their footing in a number of different ways, right? Maybe it's a school that doesn't have many classroom management issues. Like my son goes to a private school right now that I am certain, and now it's very, very small private school. So, but that lends itself, I'm sure, to like there are very few, if any, classroom management issues, right? So it becomes a thing where it's finding the right school that's the right fit for you. And that's going to be based on a lot of different factors, but I find leadership is the number one thing, because I would argue that I've had a number of friends that have taught at the university level, but if you're teaching those like English 101 classes, you're getting kids that don't want to take English. They're not interested in reading the novels. They have a different focus. So if they're in school for engineering or law or something else that like this, they're just taking this because they have to. It's still like pulling teeth to get students to do work. And so it depends. So I think there's a give and take, but I think it's, where do you think your giftedness lies? This is the real question to me. So when I think about how I started teaching the level I taught, the question I asked myself was, at what age did I need this version of me? And that age was absolutely ninth grade, because ninth grade, I didn't talk for most of the year. I was afraid to use the bathroom at school because I just got beat up all the time. I got beat up every day my ninth grade year. I made a whole video about this years ago about getting bullied. And I don't mean getting bullied like someone pushed you or teased you. I mean like getting the crap kicked out of you regularly, and till I figured out like how to handle that. And so for me, it was ninth grade version of me needed me the most. There were other ages that needed me, but ninth grade needed me the most. And so that's why I picked that. And that's why I stuck with it. And I could see young me in my students, and especially in certain kids that act just like I did back then. So I think that's part of the question too. And then it's like, well, where do you see yourself going? I don't think you get any extra credit as a teacher for teaching somewhere that is a horrendous nightmare every day and you hate it. And you're trying, right? You're trying to be the best teacher. You're showing up for things like this. You're signing up for programs. You have a mentor. You're going to your coach at your school or your curriculum director. Like, you're doing everything you can, exhausting possibilities, and it's still not the right fit. Might not mean that you're not a good teacher. It's just that you are not aligned for this. And so I know for myself, there are grades I could see myself like, nope. Like first grade, second grade, those young primary grades, not a chance. I'm real good at connecting with those kids and rallying them up, but getting kids to sit quiet, nope, not a chance.
That's so true.
Yeah. I love hanging out with kids.
You love that age, but I even just think the way that elementary school is like set up with so many different, like, it's like just such quick, like moving things with so many different things. It's just not unique to you, or it's not.
It takes,
fitting to
you have to be a really
organized. I feel like elementary school teachers are like super organized.
More like, I'm not the dad for that age. I'm more like the fun uncle that comes in and brings all the candy and fun and stuff that makes your mom go, what would you buy that for? What? You needed a ball pit for your living room? Peace. And then I'm out, right?
Yes.
Teenagers, though, even though they're a pain in the butt.
That's your jam. I know. Yeah, not mine so much. We're the opposite.
They get it. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Next up is Salma asking, how does a young teacher balance personal life and teaching? I feel like I'm constantly buried in teaching and admin, but I'm scared that my youth is getting away.
So that's a great question,
Salma. It's a fair question, right?
That's a wonderful name too. So I have like a whole clip show of me commenting on how much I like people's names or when they have a nice profile picture. So You know, I'm going to tell you this, Selma. As someone that is 47, first of all, I can't believe. Now, look, there is occasional, because look, I'm going to tell you right now, my eating's off the rails right now, right? I am, for someone that goes to the gym 5 days a week, that works out 5 days a week, I do not look as healthy as I could because I eat a lot of Nutty Buddies and cookies. So anyway, so that leads to some joint pain and stuff like that sometimes. But with regards to feeling young, I think I feel the same as I like. There's a large part of me that still feels like 18, 19-year-old me, right? Like I am love going out. I love doing stuff. I love engaging. It's just like, I don't know. It's like something I didn't think about so much when I was young. I thought when I was 47, I have a picture in my mind of what my parents looked like. And my stepdad was jean shorts and tucked in Hawaiian shirts all day. So that was different to me. Now, with regards to taking advantage of your youth, right? Especially if you're not married, if you don't have kids, you cannot fully understand how much freedom you have now, right? You just can't. And that's not a diss. I'm not trying to put anyone down. It's like until you're connected in those ways, you don't realize the time investment that goes into that. So but what I would do is I find someone that like really, and look, this is gonna sound like too rigid, but see if you can go with this a little bit. I find that scheduling time for things is ridiculously productive. So it is keeping in mind, like what time am I getting up, and then what time am I, and what am I pouring into myself, and then what time am I going to work, and what time am I going to leave, and what am I doing on different nights of the week, right? So like, am I going and playing pickleball? Am I going to a bar with my friends? Am I going out for apps and drinks on Fridays? Am I going for a hike on Saturday? It is putting things on your calendar and not letting your calendar happen to you, right? So there's this great thing you could check out too. And I believe it's probably still on sale. There's a guy, Jesse Itzler, that I've been following for ages, and he makes this thing called the Big Ass Calendar, and it is what it sounds like. It's a giant ass calendar with your whole year on one laminated thing. And then he has this program that you go through in it where you put on the calendar all the things that you want to do this year. And I use a different planning method that's way more complicated than I need to go into right here. But so that model doesn't fit for me at this moment. But I think it's such a great idea. If you just go on Instagram and look up hashtag Big Ass Calendar or Jesse Itzler, I think it's Itlzer. I think that's how his name is spelled. It's starting to really dive into how do I take back my time? How do I own my time? How do I take advantage of this? Because once you do that, I think you realize that this time matrix opens up and you see how much time you actually have. Like, I'm telling you, it was transformative for me in the last few years in the classroom, that when I decided I was leaving at 3:30 instead of 6 o'clock at night, right? That, like, and you know how much those after school hours are great. Like, I'm at school, I'm getting stuff done, I'm hanging with kids. When I left and got back like 2.5 hours of time, it's like I get home and I'm like, there was no traffic. I actually changed out of my school clothes. The sun was still up. I could like take a walk with my kids or to ride bikes or take the dog out or all these things. And then I'm like, dang, then 6 o'clock hits and I'm like, I would have just been getting out of school right now. So I think it's really becoming a master of your calendar is what opens up opportunity. But check out Jesse Itzler's stuff. I think it's really wonderful and could help you.
Another resource in the comments, Linda mentioned that she's reading a book to help with that same sort of work-life balance. It's called Effortless. And she said one of the ideas is to define or redefine what done actually means. Yeah, I thought you would like this.
Oh, we need to look that one up.
And she said, so instead of doing something perfectly, you can say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes and no more on a certain task and set a limit that way. To stop, like, that's good because I'm a perfectionist too. So that is, I can work
Really?
to no end. Yeah.
Did you sit in your pajamas on the couch yesterday for 18 hours working on something without? I had to like literally. I'm like, have you used the bathroom all day? Like I was like seriously like, have you?
All right, I'm trying to get
Do you
something
have any
done.
water?
Like
No, it's incredible. But you
push a
do have
project.
that ability to
I
do
do.
that.
So my advice is, especially if you're younger, is to really work on like boundaries. I feel like boundaries isn't something that I was good at when I was like, say, in my 20s. It came later in my 20s because I had kids at that point. But boundaries is a big thing to learn to say no so you can actually enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Teaching's never ending. Like,
saying
it
no
is
to things so you
never
can say yes to
ending.
others.
Right. So you have to
That's
say
clutch.
no. And then I love this tip that Linda said about like, you're going to spend 30 minutes on something. So it's like you're still working and doing something, but you don't need to complete it all the way as long as everything is kind of getting moved.
Yes.
And the other major point that I love that I want to reiterate that you
Please.
said was don't let your calendar happen to you or your schedule or whatever. Like you have to be intentional.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I learned about being once we started like this kind of work, that man, we're really busy and it's never ending, but we have to be able to like put a hold on it so we can go and be intentional with kids or with church or with other things with family, things that we actually want to do in our life.
Making friends. I think the other thing Linda brings up there without even saying it is reading books on the topic, right? Podcasts are good, but you listen to 7 hours. So like I'm trying to do 2 audiobooks a month right now. It's like nugget after nugget after nugget, and find stuff that people are already reading. Like I just started reading, I'm reading, oh gosh.
I don't know. Don't ask me.
Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm reading right now. And I know it's been out for years and everybody's read it already. Dude, it's blowing my mind. Every day I'm like, babe, you got to listen to what I learned today. So yeah. So the reading books and learn from someone else's mistakes.
Yeah. Because what do we say?
Because experience takes too long. I don't got time for experience all the time.
Instruction is faster.
Instruction's faster. Let me learn from someone else who already did it. I don't have time for experience is helpful, but absolutely.
You should always learn from your experience,
Yeah.
but to learn only through experience is like,
takes too long.
Takes too long. All right. Gian is up next. How do you balance being creative and your own style in the classroom with teaching to standards and the underlying nature of state-based exams, which do not get rescheduled even with many snow days?
Bro, tell me. All right. So Gian, it goes back to this idea of it's not what you do, it's how you do it sometimes. One, it's how are you showing up to class, right? Your energy is contagious. And so being mindful of the energy that you're bringing into any room is going to be your number one thing, right? Then it's looking about how I teach. I'm trying to condense my thoughts because I'm going to go 1,000 different ways with this because I could talk about it for a long time. And sometimes it's hard for me to just like rein it in. I want you to think about a DJ back. We're going to go here. A DJ back in the day gets a Sam and Dave record, right? Or a Miles Davis record, right? They're looking for how can I take the same thing and kind of remix it so that it's something that's attractive to the people that I'm playing it for. And I don't think lessons are any different. So I've gotten pushback about any number of stories I've read in my class, but like if you think of something like The Sniper, right, by O. Henry, I think it's by. The Sniper has so many parallels to Fortnite that it's ridiculous. So if I just tell the kids that we're going to read a book about a guy with a gun on top of a roof in Ireland during the Irish Civil War, I've already lost more than half the kids that are like, Irish Civil, what are you talking about? Like, don't care. But it's this idea of you're on top of the roof, you're behind the parapet, you have your handgun and you have your sniper rifle and there's tanks and there's another shooter. And when you're in Fortnite, like I draw this parallel, or you could do like Call of Duty, like there's a connection point there, right? You could also look at things like Sniper the movie with Mark Wahlberg, or they made a TV show not called Sniper, it's called Shooter. And then they made a TV show called Shooter also with Ryan Philippe or something like that. This is a ridiculous amount of knowledge I'm realizing that I know about these things. This is weird. But it's looking for a connection point. There's scenes from Saving Private Ryan where they're fighting against snipers. It's finding, so where my brain goes, right, when I'm thinking about how am I using my unique ability, it's looking for the connection points that I see between where kids' interest lies and in what we're doing. So it's not just about like, if you're reading the Scarlet Letter, the same thing applies, right? Why do I care about these people who were so long ago that don't even maybe have the same religion as me? And we don't do the same thing, but we do brand people, right? The Scarlet Letter is basically cancel culture. So how can I connect those dots in that way? And so it's not about just changing the curriculum. It's about how can I make those connection points? How can I take some, I made a video a couple weeks ago on reading Merchant of Venice and or reading different books and creating something physical, like when we're reading and in one of the boxes, the caskets that are in Merchant of Venice, there's this skull, right, with a scroll in its eye. So that's why this is in my background, because I used to use this in class. So like, you just take the skull, you put the scroll in its eye. Then when you get to the part of reading the scroll, instead of reading in the book, I have someone come up, they take the scroll out, they unravel it, they read it in front of the class. So you're looking for moments where we're doing things. If you're reading the lottery, maybe we do a lottery. If you're reading the Shooter, maybe we go outside and we envision like, all right, so the one guy's on this roof and we're on this roof and here's what the situation looks like on the ground. If we're like, so, and this can be done with any class, right? But how are we writing on the windows, writing on the walls, writing in sidewalk chalk outside on the ground? How can we bring someone in to speak to this? Because maybe the book Night isn't hitting me because the Holocaust was basically 1 million years ago to a 13-year-old, but can I find someone that has some experience with that time period to bring them into school to talk about that? And so that's where my head goes, is like looking for connection points like that. And that's what's going to make your class explode and become this interactive experience instead of just like we're reading a book about something I don't care about.
Man, I had to read a book about the Holocaust. I've said this before, and the author was still alive when we were in middle high school, something like that. And they brought her in, and it was the most amazing thing. It's like the only book that I remember really reading because that connection was there. It was, and I still have it, and she signed it. And
did you know she was coming in when you started reading the book? Do you remember? Or was
it
like
not.
a surprise?
No,
because I remember you saying you loved the book, and then she came in, and I remember you saying like she signed your book. We have it in the living room.
I do. It's on my bookshelf.
So
no, I don't remember, but I want to say I don't think I knew that the author was coming in at the beginning. I just liked the book already, but it made it like that much more special.
Classroom speakers and visitors are the number one most underutilized resource for teachers.
An interesting point, though, someone was saying in our Facebook group, they were talking about how expensive it is to get, like they're in a really small school and they want authors to come in. They want to do that, but it's really expensive. So there is plead
your case, pitch them. Here's how you go ahead. I was going to say, tell you how to do it.
The thread is just really great because it was a lot of like ways to get cheaper things or how to connect with other places, awesome. like bookstores locally, or just other tips and tricks to be able to kind of like offset that. What do you
tell you my number one trick for getting people that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise is DMing them through Instagram. No,
but what about I'm talking about their rate for coming to this. If they're like, oh yeah, great, you got a hold of me,
but if you have if you're through a speaking bureau or something like that, right? Or you have a manager, or there's someone handling this for you, they're going to pitch you the rate. If I can hit you up in a DM and say, listen, I work in a school with no funding. I have students that really need this. Here's my situation. Would you be willing to bless us with 20 minutes of your time, right? Just 20 minutes of your time.
That's a great tip.
And then if they can't make it there, then I've done a number of them over Skype. And I would say I have not seen a difference before between the virtual and the in-person Sometimes it's just more fun, especially if there's some kind of hands-on tactical thing, like having an artist do a virtual event is not as fun because you can't get your hands dirty and do stuff with them. But asking someone for 20-minute time to Zoom call for 20 minutes, and they're always going to stay longer. So that's why you just pitch the bar super low. And then telling them your situation is sometimes folks see the value in that. I mean, I've reached out to some really impressive people that I know charge $50,000 to $100,000 to speak like at a conference completely free.
Yeah, that's a good point.
People want to find ways to help. You have to offer them opportunities. And if you don't ask them, the answer is already no.
Facts. Okay, Nassim is up next asking, when will you visit New York for a family visit?
So I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't know. It's not in the plans anytime soon.
But we've actually talked about this a lot recently. Like places especially in New York City that we want to go to. And I have friends in New York City that I would love to visit again. But it's just like, it's like, first of all, getting back to Philly at some point. And I don't even know when that's going to be honest with you.
No, because we've only been here barely 4 months. Like, so it's like, it hasn't been that long.
No, and it's
still like settling in.
It's still fun. It's still like,
there's a lot to do still here before
that you
we
don't
go
think
back.
about. Right. That's like everyone else. People here are like, you went where? You did what? I'm like, yeah, we just walked for an hour into the desert.
We went and just looked at the stars.
We just stood and thinking, was that anyone else out there? Nope. No, because they're used to stars. We have 4 in Philadelphia.
So piggybacking off of that question, kind of he's asking, how is the transition in your new place? I feel like it's been a long time since I've checked in.
No. So thanks, man. I hope you're doing well also. I think it's been largely awesome. I think at this point, the biggest kind of like next big step is finding ways to connect on a deeper level with people and like building out a friend base on some level. But
I think that's probably the true next step, because it's been like getting here, getting your house set together, getting like all this stuff together, kids rooms,
kids in
all
school,
of that stuff, kids in school,
kids rhythms. And so,
that's kind of has settled a bit, and we
Yeah.
have some of those things. So I think, it's building a friend base and
then making sure everything has a place, because there's still things we can't find. It's like,
Yeah.
I know I went a box. I remember. And
I'm not sure things made it in boxes.
I think they
believe
fell
it or
out of
not.
the truck. Some
Weird rando little things, or just still building up things like when John Lopez or John Fox, when you move cross country, there's so much you can't bring, also from your refrigerator to the things in your garage, like weird little things like I don't have WD-40. Yes.
Yeah. No, I think
all your
somehow in
condiments you gotta
transition,
buy new. Weird
somewhere in
stuff.
transit, God said, you don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
You don't
so
need the top of that French press.
weird rando things that we're
Drink the
missing
grinds.
still.
Go ahead, hit it.
All right. Mr. Boland is asking, can you discuss the benefits and downsides of teaching abroad?
So
feel like-
I taught in Africa, in Zambia for a little while.
No, I feel like this is a good one because you have a mentee right now.
I have a
who's
mentee
teaching
that
abroad.
teaches in Kuwait. And then before that taught in Southeast Asia. And I've had a number of mentees. So for those of you that don't know, I do mentoring, right? So if folks go to our website, you can sign up for mentoring, and I do one-on-one calls with people. So this guy, we were just talking about this yesterday. Some of the benefits being that you get all these different experiences, right? Of like what it would be like to teach elsewhere. When I started teaching in West Philly, I had taught in Camden, New Jersey before, and that was a very poorly run school. And there were definitely great things about it. There were definitely great administrators there. There were great teachers there, but just like the way that it was run, like the leadership that I dealt with on a day-to-day was poor, right? Like I can look back now and go, they were not leading. So when I got to West Philly, I had the best leader I ever had. Dr. Noah Tennant is currently the assistant superintendent for the Philadelphia School District, is the best leader I've ever worked for in my life. And in my top, and I've had some really good bosses. He's in my top 3 bosses of all time. So working there, I remember folks would come in and complain all the time about the school, about the kids, about how things were running. Those of us that had been somewhere else were like, bro, you don't even know. Similarly, I remember when I took my students, especially when I took kids to Belize, we went and visited a school that was actually poor. Not poor like our school was. I mean, like, there was no air conditioning. There was no free and reduced lunch. Many students didn't get to eat in the afternoon. They had one stapler for the whole school, and it was a big school that they just shared. Each room had one ceiling fan and it got incredibly hot there. So kids would fight over who got to sit directly under the ceiling fan. And what it did was open my students' eyes to what really severe poverty looks like, right? Not just what we often and I'm not dismissing anyone's situation, but not what we think of in the States oftentimes as poverty, or, man, you're so poor, like your dad has that car, and it's like, yeah, but my folks have 2 cars. And so to look at someone who lives in like really, really poor situations, it opens their eyes. I think teaching abroad does the same thing. I mean, I taught at all girls school. That was the matcha school for girls, all girls school, 60 students in a class, no electric lights. I had no chalk and just a chalkboard. Many of the seats didn't have the seat part on it. So it is coming to the US and finding, like, it just shifted my mindset on doing that. So I don't think there's any downside to doing it. I think there's only upside, because whether you are exposed to something incredible or you're exposed to something that is difficult, it's going to give you have a different jumping off point. I think it makes you a more well-rounded person.
That I agree with. But I think that if you teach if you're from the States and you go to somewhere abroad that they're very rich, like a very affluent place, and country, it can be really, really difficult to teach in that when you don't come from that, because it's harder to reach kids. It's harder to those sort of things. So I don't think it's always about going to somewhere that's, just because you go abroad, it's poor.
No, you're right. So in Kuwait, it's actually the opposite, right? Or friends that have taught in other parts of the world where it was far, they made a lot of money doing it also. And you didn't deal with certain issues.
But you deal with a whole lot of other issues.
And to me, that goes back to the idea of, where does your giftedness lie? What have I haven't been given everything to do in education. I play a role, right? And so in that role, what am I to do with this? And if I went somewhere that didn't call on that giftedness, then I'm not teaching just to teach, right? I teach belief. I teach connection. I teach kids that they're worth it. It's a lot of that kind of other stuff. And if your school doesn't need that, then it's just not, you don't need me, right? You already have the people that are going to do this, or there's other people that are going to be a better fit for you.
Yeah. Ultimately, I don't think there's a downside to teaching abroad at all. It's going to, you're going to learn something from the experience.
Yeah. And it's different culture. It's different. Yeah. I think that's awesome. Even if it's hard, or even if it's easy, or even if it's awesome, or even if it's a nightmare, you are going to take lessons away from that. Yeah. And so looking for those all the time.
Here's an interesting non-educational question for you from Naseem. Where would you recommend to start a family and raise kids? I think it depends on who you are.
I think it depends on who you are. I
love quiet. I love space. I love peace. And I like that for my kids too.
But I didn't used to.
Right. But what I'm going to say is, I think, am I going to go in the middle America? I love middle America, but if I was someone of a different ethnicity than white, I guess you're going to put yourself out there for I don't know. I just think would I want to go teach or live somewhere that's predominantly one way and then get hit with
so where we're living right now, right? There are no to my knowledge, and this is driving around and noticing, there are no like, I don't think there's any Jewish temples here. I don't think there's anywhere for Muslims to meet. There's a ton of church. I mean, you could throw a rock in any direction and hit a church, right? Which is probably a bad. I'm not advocating throwing rocks at churches. But we were like, oh, let's try some churches, and then there was like a gazillion churches around. And the closer we looked, I'm like, dang, that's a church too, and that's a church too, and that's a church too. So I think it's, what kind of place do you want your kids to grow up in, right? Like, we wanted city life. And then as my kids got older, and I've shared some of the things that like my kids were exposed to that I didn't want them exposed to, like, and I'm not saying this is it in every city. But my kids saw people have sex in public. My kids have seen people have overdoses. My kids have seen street fights and people pooping on the sidewalk. I mean, like, weird stuff,
Drug
man.
use out in the open. Like,
and it's like, I like the access to everything. I like the fast-paced lifestyle even. But then it got to a point where I want more space. I want more quiet. I want to see stars. I don't want all of this going on all the time, but I don't want to live too far from it so that if I do want to have my kids check something out, they can check it out. So it's some of that stuff. And then it's like, what part of what kind of weather are you willing to put up with? I'm not living.
That's a good question.
I'm not living in Iowa because Iowa gets 24 inches of snow. Michael Matera's always trying to get us to move up to Minnesota. And I'm like, no, when it's cold enough that you have to plug your car in at night is not the Reynolds place, right? So it's kind of that sort of thing. It's cost of living, right? Cost of living in Texas is dirt cheap, right? But
there's other things. Yeah, there's a lot of variables. I don't think it's any one perfect place for anybody. And I just don't think there's any one perfect place, period.
Yeah. But I think it's a great opportunity, though, to just be able to choose. So I will say, like, I feel the privilege of being able to say, nope, we're moving to New Mexico. Like, and it's a great fit for right now.
Yeah.
I can't believe we live in New Mexico. I still think about it. I'm just like,
there's a video online of you saying, I'm never going to move to New Mexico. Which I find so funny. I just want to shout out Patrick Coolin. Gave us
that's our homie.
I know. He said happy Sunday from South Jersey. Give us a super chat.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Pat. Pat
Hope you're well.
Is a good friend of mine from growing up. We used to drive in his car was atrocious. And I remember like listening to Wu-Tang and
you guys would
Deftones.
Drive to college together.
Yeah.
You like carpooled. Yeah.
And then he did the morning show at Rowan University on the radio, and it was phenomenal. Great dude. So thanks, Pat.
All right. Dress to Read is asking best advice for someone who is teaching full-time, sponsors 2 student organizations, and is now about to start their master's program. Hubby and I are starting masters at the same time too.
So the fact that you're starting at the same time is awesome because you can support one another. I would say my first thing would be don't sign up for anything else. Right?
Right.
Seriously, other things are going to come up. There's going to be other opportunities. There's going to be more people that say, oh, let's ask. She's always willing to help out and do something. And every time you say yes to something else, you got to say no to something else. And so I think that's part of it. And then it's, like I said before, it's dialing in your calendar. There's time for all of it, right? You think of, I was listening to something recently, and it was this old, you hear people say this all the time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, and we do. But some people master their calendars. They master their schedule. So I start by putting everything on the calendar, and now I don't have to do that so much anymore because you get into these rhythms and I don't need a timer to always go off, but sometimes I do. So it's making sure that you're spending time with your husband. It's making sure that you're giving time to the student organization. It's making sure that your master's work, but being honest with yourself about how much time the work on your master's is going to take, the reading, the studying, the writing, the meeting with other people, being honest with what you need in those times, and then planning accordingly is the move. That's a lot of stuff to do. But I just remember being in college is the first time I had to be a true master of my calendar. And I did it. like I really did it, and I think that has benefited me going forward. But so yeah, it's mastering your calendar and saying no to everything else because your plate is full.
Yeah, I remember when you were in college, you would be when a semester would start, you would be like, "All right, see y'all." I mean, I would
See you
see
at
you because you
Christmas.
came to like my apartment to just study.
Yeah.
But you would really say like, "Okay, it's starting, and so now I need to like buckle down," basically. So it was like, "See y'all
And
later."
I did that to friends for you. I did it
Yeah,
when I first started teaching. I'd be like, all right, I'll see y'all
yeah.
in the summer because I'm working.
Yeah. Okay. Hannah is up next asking, "Hey there, so I'm about to launch into the school year and I always start with routine."
Pause.
Yes.
Because Hannah's in Australia. And everyone here is like, wait, what? Like
Oh yeah.
launch into the school year.
Yeah.
Because they're having warm weather. And we have 7 degrees. All right. Anyway, go ahead, Hannah.
So she's asking, so she usually starts the school year with routine, but the wheels always fall off at some point.
Yep.
Any advice about how to get back on track or maintain?
So I think it's a question of why are they falling off? Like at what happens that the wheels fall off? I create habits that are incredibly achievable for me. They still stretch me. Some of them stretch me, some of them don't. But if I want to, when we started going to the gym this year, like consistently, like 5 times a week working out, it became I only have to do 4 exercise, like 4 different machines, 2 times each. That's it. And that was doable for me. But maybe yours is I need to go to the gym and do 1 machine 2 times each, and that's it. Right. And then, or I've had other friends that their deal was they just had to go and check in. And if they didn't want to work out that day, you go in, scan your little app, and you can peace out if you want to. But what they found was that it was the getting there that was hard. I think oftentimes people's habits are difficult because they put too much, they have too many habits too fast, and they're too difficult. So I have a lot of systems, but they have scaled over time. And I think of them like this, Hannah. What is something I want to get better at? What is something that's important to me that I know if I do this, it will alleviate pain in my life in other areas. So working out is something that I know will make me a better person. So how do I build that? So I build it the way that I just shared it with you. And then there's other things I do in that too that make it easier. How do I make sure I take all of my vitamins every single day? Well, when I come in from the gym, I take them immediately after I walk in the door, typically, right? Especially in the summer when I'm going to the gym early. How do I make sure that like I, read my Bible every day, right? I like put it on, like sometimes I put it on my desk the night before so that when I wake up in the morning, I grab my coffee, I go into my office and sit down. It's right there. It's like there's nothing else to do with that. Like I'm not gonna just go on social and I don't turn my phone on and all these things. Like it's making it doable. It's making it so that you know exactly that what you're doing is actually benefiting you, right? Because I've had habits before that I'm like, I don't even know that this is like, I'm just doing this because I've always done it, right? So what can I do instead? And then identifying what is it that makes the wheels fall off and really giving some consideration ahead of time while you're excited about, all right, what am I going to do on days that I'm tired? What am I going to do on days I don't feel like it? What am I going to do on days where there's something else to do? And I have to really consider that. And that's how I start getting better at doing stuff. So I will say, like, when you don't feel like doing it or when you're tired or when you're sick, I find that tracking my habits helps. I've showed this on videos before, this habit tracker app that I have. When I have right now, like close to 300 consecutive days of working out, there's not a chance in the world that I'm getting a red on that thing, man. Not a chance. There have been days, Bro and I've gone for runs and walks, and it's horrible outside. There's been days when I was sick. I was sick a couple weeks ago, and I never get sick. I went to the gym. I don't know if I had a fever, and this might be stupid too, but like, so I'm not telling everyone to go do this. I had like a shirt on, a sweater, and like a big flannel coat. And that's what I worked out at the gym because I knew it would suck, but I knew what would suck more was putting that stupid red dot that I didn't do it that day. So for me, gamifying it and tracking things helps me to remember too, like, oh man, I've been doing this for so long, right? Put it on social. When I was running every day for a year, I put it on social just about every day because I had to make myself accountable, right? It was just, here we are again. I'm out here running. It was at the same time at the end of my run. Every time as I was walking over the railroad tracks under the street light, that's when I would make the post. But then it makes you accountable too. And then that takes on, when you know it's public and you know people are paying attention, it changes things.
Okay.
You got one more?
I do. It's a bit of a long one, or just a multi-part, I'll
Hit
say.
it.
So Sani's asking, I have a tough question, Mr. Reynolds. I'm the gen ed teacher, social studies, and my co-teacher has 20 plus years in the system. So I read ahead. They are in their second year teaching, and their co-teacher has been a teacher for 20 years. But their co-teacher is confused by the curriculum we were given. I understand it, but it has led to my co-teacher asking my assistant principal to come in every Thursday to observe us and give us feedback on how we are teaching the curriculum. I personally don't feel comfortable, but I don't know how to tell my co-teacher that I do not appreciate her going to my assistant principal asking for these weekly observations, because I had it put to me because it had put me in an uncomfortable position. Maybe this is just me being anxious because I am not tenured and I just feel confused. I sometimes feel like I am being set up for failure. You have any advice on that one?
Yeah, I do. I'm trying to be nice because
I hope you're going to be nice.
Well,
I'm just teasing.
It's a jerk move on their part, right?
On the co-teacher's part.
So
I sometimes think that people don't realize that their move is that, like, so I think it's just having the uncomfortable conversation.
Yes.
It's going and saying like, hey, I'm only a second year teacher, and what this is doing is making me feel like this. And then I would find an alternative to like how you handle that for her not knowing.
That's exactly what you should do. Just go do what my wife said. Which is mostly the answer to many things in my life. It is also,
hey, all right, I'm gonna make a clip of that. Go ahead. Continue.
Anyway, you can. I always say, like, one of the things I didn't realize when we were younger was that you were right about a lot of stuff, because people see you outside of yourself. And so I don't see I trick myself. And you're like, no, here's some truth.
Thanks, buddy.
I think the point here is that the reason I just want to identify with what you're saying real quick, because I think the reason it's a jerk move is because that wasn't made with you connected to it. But sometimes people do things that hurt us that are intentional, and sometimes we just think they're intentional, but they actually had no idea, right? Like there's hearing that, right? Just reading it, right? Not being there, but just reading it could make me think that this is a person that just wants to do a really good job. So they're going to find the help to make sure that someone comes in and make sure that you all aren't going to get in trouble on the back end for not doing things correctly. And that we just want to make sure that we are in tune with what the school wants and needs, and that the students are getting the level of education that they deserve. But it could be flipped, and it could be like them trying to rat you out, them, especially not giving you a heads up. So I think the conversation is having a conversation around, look, I understand that, like, from what you said before, the logic is that, like, you're struggling to figure out like what we're supposed to be teaching or how we're supposed to be teaching this. The part that I feel uncomfortable about is that you are, one, reaching out on behalf of both of us for our class without consulting me. Like, let me be a part of the conversation also. Because to be honest, if you get someone to come in once a week is a lot, but like, even if you have someone come in once a week, it could be great, right? Like if you have someone that's good at observations, that knows your students, that knows who you are, they are going to just help you to do a better job because they've been there, because they've had this experience. But you got to be in the know. And so it's like, what are we focusing on this week? What are we looking at this week in our lesson? What are we looking at like, so you have a targeted area, a targeted thing that you're trying to be mindful of. And so that's what I would share with the co-teacher. Whether they have 20 years of experience or not, just because someone's been teaching a long time doesn't just mean that they're smart at relationships, at being a collaborator, right? So we have to teach people how we want to be treated. And so that's what I would do. It could sound like an uncomfortable conversation, but it could just be, hey, look, I don't know if I'm certain you didn't mean to do this, but going to the principal on our behalf without connecting me or having my voice or letting me know that you were doing, and then having them come in and I don't know that they're coming in, and it's nerve-wracking for me. I'm trying to do a really great job, but I need to know like when the scouts are going to show up so that I can, I want to be able to be an active participant in this.
But what if she already knows that? Not that
there's a lot of
that
ifs
they're coming. I mean, yeah, there is
too,
a lot
but like, if she knows, it's like, well, then I want to know, what are you looking for this week? What specifically can I be working on, so that I'm ready for this? I want to be ready because I want you to see me try so that you can tell me. And then the way I rock observations all the time, every single one of rock observations, is I made one simple shift. I know what they're looking for. And then I immediately go to them and say, how did it go? I want feedback. And people are usually resistant or reluctant or don't want feedback. I want to know feedback because what I want them to know is you don't just get to check some boxes off, right? Like I want actual feedback. I want you to tell me what I did. I want you to point out examples. I want you to talk about certain aspects so that I can get better. Then next time I'm going to go, all right, based on last time, here's 4 things I'm trying to do that I want you to see how well I'm doing. I'm kind of forcing people's hand to show up and do a good job instead of just showing up. Because I've had those observations too, where they check a box and they're really on YouTube the whole time.
All right.
So cool. All right. Look, we're at an hour. I realize there may be some more questions, but we really try to keep it at the hour mark. Throw that thing up there real quick before you go. Don't leave. This week, this is going on sale. Classroom Management 101, Building Relationships. It is the first installment of workshops we are going to be doing every single month, right? So there's one February 1st. There's one February 29th, which is Leap Day or whatever. There's going to be another one in March and another one in April. We are trying to help teachers have the best year possible, right? This will launch this week. Because look, I say this in the video that I made for the program, but experience takes too long. We're halfway through the school year, right? It is far better to learn from instruction. And so I'm going to teach you ways that I have had classroom management on lock for years. The first part of that is going to be building relationships. Then we're going to do another one on policies, procedures. Well, it's classroom engagement is the second one. Then policies, procedures, and systems. And then another one is here's a laundry list of things that I have screwed up on royally and how I fixed them. Because I'm just going to teach you straight from this is what went wrong. This is how I did it better. And this made my life better. And yeah, because my hair used to be black when I started teaching, just saying. But that's it, gang. If you could please hit the thumbs up button, it just helps us get this out there to people. And that's it. We'll see you next week. All right.
Yeah. And if we didn't answer your question, put them in the Facebook group. If you're not in there, you can just, apply, I guess. I don't know if that's not the right word. Apply.
It's 3 questions. Yeah. We just make sure you're a real teacher and you're not like a bot and
request to join. Yeah. That's the right word.
That's it. Cool. See you next week, gang. Peace.